January of 2019, WeWork hits its peak valuation of $47 billion. More valuable than FedEx. November 2023. It's all over. They file for bankruptcy. But here's what doesn't quite make sense. At their peak, WeWork had over 700 locations worldwide, more than 700,000 members, revenue that doubled between 2017 and 2018. So how do you go from being Silicon Valley's golden child to a corporate cautionary tale? Thanks for watching the video today. I'm Diego, D-I-E-G-O, and today we're going to take a look at the epic rise and fall of WeWork. We're going to pull out some macro business lessons that you can apply to your micro business so you don't become another small-scale version of WeWork. This is helping small business owners learn from the mistakes of mega business owners. If we look at the 2019 numbers for WeWork, $3.2 billion in revenue. Major cities hitting 90% occupancy in their offices. I remember going back around that time, 2019, we rented a space in a WeWork for a meeting. It was nice. It was cool. They had free beer, free coffee. It was hip. It was expensive. It felt cool to be there. And it wasn't cheap to be there. So from the outside, it was like, hey, there's some sort of business here that looks pretty attractive. And customers like me, they genuinely loved the product. But watch out, for every dollar in revenue they had, they burned 60 cents in losses. The math was really broken from day one. What's the number one flaw here? They were playing a venture capital game with a real estate business. So if we rewind back to 2008, the very beginning, Adam Neumann's baby clothing company, Crawlers Fails. Adam Neumann's the person who went on to start WeWork. But walking through Brooklyn one day during the recession, he noticed a pattern. Massive offices were sitting empty. Freelancers were cramming into Starbucks for Wi-Fi. So like any great entrepreneur, you're always looking for opportunities. And he saw one right here. He had an idea to bridge the gap between all this empty real estate and all those people hanging out in Starbucks. He would rent large spaces on long leases, divide them up, and rent them out flexibly. So people who normally couldn't afford a full-on office space or office building could just rent out a small share and use it as they please. February 2010, the first WeWork opened in Soho in New York City. Within 2 months, it was profitable and all seemed good. And members weren't just buying desk space at the time. They were buying community. As I said, there was beer on tap, networking events, the feeling of being a part of something. It felt like you were in a club. You were doing something cool while you were at work. If we fast forward ahead a few more years to 2014, WeWork had grown to 23 locations. Still making money, still sustainable. It was looking good for Adam and his company. Then everything changed with one meeting. 2017. Masayoshi Son, CEO of SoftBank, tours the WeWork space. The visit lasts 12 minutes. According to the report, Son tells Neumann, your vision isn't big enough. In a fight, being crazy is better than being smart. Within months, SoftBank invests $4.4 billion into WeWork, one of the largest startup investments in history. But here's what that money actually bought: a blank check to ignore unit economics. We'll get into what this means, so don't get lost in the jargon. Stick with me on the story. Remember the profitable 23 location company? Well, that's out the window at this point in time. With all that cash behind them, they had to grow because SoftBank was going to want a big fat return. So the old company became completely unrecognizable. And between 2017 and 2019, they added hundreds and hundreds of locations. And at peak expansion, nearly one new location every day. But here's the killer detail. They're locking in decade-long lease obligations while offering customers month-to-month flexibility. So if nobody shows up, they're still going to be responsible for paying that lease. It's like buying a fleet of buses to run an Uber service. The assets are fixed, but the revenue can fluctuate or completely disappear overnight. Let me show you how the actual math of opening a new WeWork worked. Long-term lease obligation, $5 to $10 million. Build out and design, another $2 to $3 million. That's furniture, tech, amenities, $800,000 plus. On top of all that, you have monthly operating costs, somewhere around $40,000 plus just to operate the space. So best case scenario, it was 18 months to break even if you hit 85% occupancy consistently. Pretty optimistic. Compare that to their competitor, IWG, formerly named Regis. They require 12-month commitments from most members. Their locations break even in 6 to 8 months, a big difference to WeWork's 18. So WeWork was essentially running a hotel where guests could check out at any time, but the mortgage on that hotel lasted 15 years, and WeWork had to keep paying that check. This wasn't scaling, it was multiplying the risk at a geometric rate. Now you might say, $4.2 billion, this is crazy. This is way out of my league. I'm not trying to build a business that big. I'm not trying to build a unicorn like this. How does it apply to me, the small scale operator? Here's how. You have a bakery operation opening location number 2 while location 1 barely breaks even. That's the WeWork playbook. It's an online retailer who orders 10,000 units because the first 100 sold quickly. This is classic WeWork thinking. It's the agency that triples their team after one record quarter. The same fundamental error that WeWork had. WeWork's fatal flaw wasn't thinking big. It was scaling problems instead of solving them first. We have a problem with one location. We'll fix it with growth. We'll just add more locations and the problems will go away. Wrong. What they should have done is fix the problems when they had less locations. So when they scaled, they were scaling a less problematic or hopefully problem-free business model. And then these problems wouldn't have multiplied so much. Eventually, WeWork went on to file their IPO and become a publicly traded company, but the public finally saw inside this machine at that time. The numbers were staggering. In 2019 alone, the losses were $1.9 billion. Newman's compensation for running the company and losing $1.9 billion, he made millions. The conflict here was Newman personally owned several buildings that WeWork leased. In just 6 weeks, WeWork's valuation collapsed by 83%. But here's what's fascinating. The co-working industry didn't collapse. IWG still operates profitably in over 120 countries. Hundreds of co-working spaces thrive today, from the bigs to the smalls. The difference is they built businesses. WeWork didn't build a business. They built hype, they built enthusiasm, they built a cult following behind a great story, not a great business. In order for WeWork to actually work, they needed perfection. No recessions, no pandemic, perpetual growth, every location at full capacity. And you know what they never did? Reality checks. Not sometimes, not ever really. You can probably feel it immediately when something isn't working. They could, but they couldn't hide behind billions in funding, and WeWork could lose up to $5 million a day and call it investing in growth. On the small scale, if you were to lose a few hundred, you'd probably start to pivot immediately. Your constraints aren't weaknesses, they're your early warning system. Different game, different rules, better survival rate. So before you make your next business decision, ask yourself this: am I fixing what's broken at small scale, or am I just making the problem bigger? Because here's the truth that WeWork learned too late. Problems don't get solved by growth. They get amplified by growth. If something loses money serving 10 customers, it's going to hemorrhage money when you have to serve 1,000. WeWork burned through $16 billion trying to revolutionize the work environment. You don't need to revolutionize anything with your business. You just need positive unit economics. Fix the unit, prove it works, then scale and multiply. That's not just good business. It's the only business that survives. If you're a small business owner, I hope you can learn from this story and avoid some of the same mistakes that WeWork made. Thanks for watching the video. I'm Diego, Diego. I'd love to hear what you thought about this one. Leave in a comment below. Thanks again, and until next time, be nice, be thankful, and do the work.